You've spoken, Governor, in the past about your preference. We had an extensive interview with the ECB president this morning saying she wants to just focus on the facts. She has a preference that she will not say. In the past, you've argued in favor of a symmetrical inflation target. Do you think there's a bias towards that?
Let me have a broader view on the strategic review. We use a very favorable window of opportunity, and in two regards at least. There is a good team spirit, let me stress it, in the Governing Council around our new president, Christine Lagarde. And second, there is some stabilization of the economic outlook confirmed by the last PMI published this morning. So these are two favorable conditions. We use them. We shouldn't conclude the strategic review today as we just launched it yesterday, Francine, if you allow me. But let me stress one point. The inflation target will be one important element. But let me stress one point about the outreach of the strategic review. It should go beyond the traditional specialists, let me express it this way, economists, financial markets, etc. It should go also to businesses and to European citizens. And this is very important, not only for reasons of democratic accountability, but also for reasons of economic efficiency. Because at the end, households and businesses are the price makers and the wage setters. So this will be another important dimension of the review.
But so, Governor, what are you telling me? That you're just keeping your options open at the moment? That you also don't want to influence others when it comes to your preference for looking at inflation?
No, I said about the inflation target already that it should be, in my view, symmetric, flexible and credible. We will discuss about the various implementations of these qualificatives. Let me stress perhaps the qualificative credible, which is directly linked to what I said earlier about our outreach in our monetary policy, in our strategic review. We have to communicate better with households and businesses. We have to explain to them our inflation target in order to enhance its credibility, but we have also to listen to them about, for example, their inflation expectations, which we don't measure very well at present.
But so how would you raise the inflation expectations?
About inflation expectations, we have obviously an issue of measurement. To give you two figures, if I look at market inflation expectations, 5 years in 5 years, it's about 1.3. If I look at the survey of professional forecasters published this morning, it's 1.7. If I look at households and businesses, badly measured, but probably higher. So here we have a key technical issue. But we have to enhance the power of our inflation target. And if I look into real data, there are three interesting figures. First is actual inflation, 1.3. Also for core inflation, it improves slightly, but it's not enough. Second is wage increase, 2.5%, and in between is services inflation, 1.8. And the key question, also for inflation expectation, is the pass-through of this wage increase, which is continuous, which is robust, to services inflation and their core inflation. We are confident about this path, but how can we improve it is the key question.
How can we improve it?
No, it's a question of our policy measures, which are strong and efficient. It's also a question about our communication, but it will be part of the strategic review. Again, Francine, it started yesterday, and we have till the end of this year.
Governor, how can you explain to EU citizens negative rates?
Negative rates will not apply to ordinary European citizens. It's a case in France.
But some banks have passed it on.
As in most jurisdictions, some banks gave intention, but for the wealthiest customers, so it's a very special case. But negative rates are useful for the economy as a whole, as low rates are. And there is little doubt, if you look at all estimates, they are very convergent, that it brought to the euro area economy an average 0.5% additional growth yearly, which is very significant. That it brought 2 to 3 million additional jobs in the last 5 years. If I look at the euro area, it created 11 million jobs, so monetary policy played a significant role. That increased inflation to our target. So no doubt, that our unconventional policy measures are good for the economy. The low rates for longer, which is the present situation we have due to the economic slowdown, put pressure on banks' profitability. It's true. So we should try how to mitigate these effects on bank profitability, and tiering is exactly the point. It's not the only answer, but it's a very significant answer. It will diminish this year the cost of negative rates for banks by 4 billion for the euro area as a whole, by 800 million for the French banks. These figures are not very often quoted by banks, so I use the opportunity of your invitation to stress them. They are significant. We had a debate in the Governing Council. It's not a secret. I strongly pleaded for tiering. It's now acknowledged as a success, and it's very welcome. It's a good way of combining the general economic interest and financial stability.
Governor, if tiering works so well, why not tier more?
Because we have to find a balance between the right transmission of our monetary policy and our deposit facility rate of minus 0.5% should play a role, obviously, in financial markets, and the protection of bank profitability. So I think the calibration was accurate according to our own calculation in the Banque de France.
But Governor, are you suggesting or even telling me that actually banks are using negative rates as an excuse to justify poor business models?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. And this is a very important point. Each part has to do its part of the job. One part of the job, many banks don't like negative rates. It's a right. But they should acknowledge, they are realistic, that negative rates are here and they will stay at least for a while due to the economic slowdown. So they have to adapt. Part of the job is theirs, about digitalization, consolidation, operational efficiency, etc. But we can help in the measures. Tiering is an example. If I take the case of France, we just decided to diminish the nominal interest rates on the broadest savings product, which is the so-called livret A. And it was a difficult political decision, but we made it. We also put recommendations on mortgages, how they should adapt to this environment, which is favorable for borrowers, but we shouldn't make too risky loans. So each part has to add its share of the job, and not to say it's the other part who has to do the adaptation.